Hello and welcome to another installment of Grand Guard reunion activities for the class of 1970. We hope that each and every one of you is staying safe during these most unprecedented times. My name is Heather Ashley, Senior Director of Reunions and Programs, and I'm excited to virtually bring a piece of Gainesville to each of you today, and hopefully you'll join us in the months to come for other Grand Guard activities. While we're sad that we can't see you in person, we hope the activities that we have planned continuing this month and next month can help you reconnect with your classmates, learn about what's happened at UF in the last 50 years, and leave each of you even more proud to be a Florida Gator. Also, we want to thank our presenting sponsor, OCAMIC, for supporting this year's reunion and helping us connect with our alumni in new and exciting ways. For more information about the OCAMIC, there's actually a link on our website in the resources section where you can learn more about the retirement community located right here in Gainesville. With us today, we have Dr. Rachael Seidler. She's a professor in the Department of Applied Physiology and Kinesiology at the University of Florida. Her research focuses on the neural control of movement in health and disease with a specific focus on motor learning. Dr. Seidler has expertise working with a variety of populations, including healthy, young, and older patients, other adults, patients with Parkinson's, and NASA astronauts in both basic science and intervention experiments. Her work has been supported by the NIH, the NSF, NASA, the National Space Biomedical Research Institute, and a variety of private foundations. Please help me welcome Dr. Seidler.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm really happy to spend some time with you. I wish we could meet in person, but maybe next time when you're on campus. If you like, feel free to drop by the Florida gym. This is where I work. It houses the College of Health and Human Performance and the Department of Applied Physiology and Kinesiology, which is where I work. We're right next door to the stadium. You can see a little edge of it here in this photo.
Yeah, that's okay. I can't.
I think you would be amazed to see all of the research facilities that we have in the basement of this building. So as Heather mentioned, I worked in the Department of Applied Physiology and Kinesiology. My research focuses on the brain and movement. So I do some work with NASA astronauts looking at how spaceflight changes the human brain and how people learn to move in the absence of gravity. And the other main topic that I work on, which I will speak with you about today, is how brain structure and function change with age and how that impacts the way that we move. And I'm particularly interested in evidence and potential for neural compensation and plasticity. To start with, I want us to talk a little bit about reaction time, which sounds like something that is very simple, right? How long does it take you to respond? But this is not a reflex response. It's actually a somewhat complex neural response. And I think there are times in our lives, for example, like in this photo, where we all might like to shave maybe 100 milliseconds off of our reaction time. But unfortunately, reaction time goes up with age. So this graph on the x-axis shows age from 20 to 100 years old. And on the y-axis is reaction time. And you can see for people in their 20s and 30s, their reaction time is somewhere around 500 milliseconds or half a second. But then as we age, people that are in their 80s or 90s, for some of them, their reaction time can be twice as long. And again, reaction time is not just a reflex, it's actually a measure that we use to understand processing speed in the brain, or how long it takes our brain to send information around to process it and to enable us to make a response. So for example, in the case of reacting to something that you see in front of you, the information first has to hit the retina in the back of the eye. Can you see my arrow pointing at the eye here? People can see my cursor? Heather's nodding yes. Okay. So then this information travels along axons. This is the white matter in the brain, or kind of the information superhighway, how the brain shares information across different regions. So visual information travels to the middle of the brain in the thalamus, then it travels to the back of the brain, the visual cortex, which starts to extract some features like, is this thing that I'm viewing red? What's its shape? Does it have 5 sides? Maybe it's a stop sign. And then the information gets carried up to the back of the brain, where the brain starts planning your motor response. And the motor response is also not that simple. It involves also sending signals from the motor area of the brain, the top of the brain, all the way down into the spinal cord and out to the muscles, telling them to contract. For example, to step on your brakes when you see that stop sign, or to stop short when you see a car stopping in front of you. So this is not just a simple response, and no wonder it takes several hundred milliseconds from start to finish. There are lots of different websites available where you can test your reaction time. And I'm going to embarrass myself by doing a reaction time test in front of you. So this is one that comes from a driving website, and it tries to estimate your age based on your reaction time. So we can see how accurate this might be for me. If I click start, what I'm going to have to do here when I see the stop sign is press any key on my computer board. And I'm a little bit nervous to be doing this live, so maybe that means my reaction time is fast. Okay, so it says my reaction time is about 500 milliseconds, and it very generously estimated my age at 38 years. Were you guys able to see that, or do I need to share that screen? You did not. Okay, so let me also just share that screen. Sorry about that. And I'll try it again. Can you now see the screen? Okay, great. Thank you, Heather. So let's try it again. Here I am driving along, and that stop sign's gonna come up. Oh, and okay, oh, even better. It thinks I'm 33, which is not even close to the mark, but that's okay. I'll take it today. So now you can see my slide again, right? Okay, good. So instead of doing it online, I am going to have you guys test your reaction time with a ruler. And I know Heather sent out some information saying, please have a ruler on hand. If you don't have one on hand, you can always do this on your own later. And if you want this table to figure out your reaction time, if you just look online for ruler reaction time test, you will find these numbers. But here's how it works. Have your ruler, and hopefully you have a partner to help you do this. If you're on your own, that's fine too. Just know that if you test this on yourself, you can predict when you're going to let the ruler go. So you might let go and catch it at the same time and say, wow, my reaction time is 0. It's much better if you have a friend help you, so they drop it and surprise you, okay? So what the friend should do is hold the ruler so that you have 0 at the bottom. They can hold it at the top, like in this picture, and you will place your fingers at the bottom. The friend can drop the ruler and you catch it, okay? And then when you catch it, look at how many inches has it traveled for you to catch it. Now, some of us, depending on the day we're having, we might need more than 12 inches, and that's fine. You can have your friend hold it higher by 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches. And then if you catch it, let's say you catch it at 5, you would just add those 3 inches and check for your time of 8. So I'm going to, just while we're talking, I'm going to try and see if I can see some of you in the chat. Is any, okay, I see Helen has her ruler. She's testing herself, so maybe she got a reaction time of 0. Does anybody else have rulers and you're trying your reaction time? You can go ahead and share your video, or you can post in the chat if you have any questions or comments. about how your reaction time measure is going. I see some of you don't have rulers today, and that's fine. You can always do this later. Oh, I see again, some of you are testing your reaction time. And in the chat, oh, Helen says 2.5 inches. Awesome. And yes, Brian says 8 inches. So that's a 200, yes, 200 millisecond reaction time. That's great. So it looks like you all are awake. You've had your coffee. You have fast reaction times this morning. This is obviously not a medical test, but it can give you some estimate of what your reaction time is. And it can help you to understand, again, it's not just a measure of reflexes, it's actually a measure of the amount of time that it takes your brain to process visual information and to produce a motor response. So it's a measure of your brain's processing speed. So I'm going to move on. We also are going to talk about grip strength today. Now, grip strength, people often think about this as just being a measure of how strong the muscles are in the hand, right? Sometimes at the gym, they have these little hand devices you can squeeze and test your grip strength. But I will tell you, this is not just a measure of how strong your hand muscles are. This is actually another measure of brain health. So let's talk about grip strength. This graph shows changes in grip strength, again, throughout the lifespan. So from 10 years on the left of the graph all the way out to 80 years. And you can see grip strength peaks when people are around 25 to 30 years old. And from there, it's decreasing with age, unfortunately. And again, grip strength is a measure of brain health. So this image of the brain on the right is from some of my own research, where we have measured using a special kind of MRI scan, the strength of connections along these white matter pathways between the front and the back of the brain. And we tested this in 200 people that are around 70 to 75 years old. And we found that this measure of brain connection strength between the front and the back of the brain is correlated with grip strength. So grip strength can tell you something about the pathways in the brain and how strongly they are able to maintain communication with each other as we age. This example also shows some relationships between grip strength and not just measures of motor function, but measures of cognitive function. So this graph on the left, we have age in years from starting with age 50 to 85. And on the y-axis, we have a measure of verbal ability. So how quickly can you come up with vocabulary words related to a particular topic? And the squares show people who have high grip strength. And you can see that their verbal ability is not declining with age. The people in triangles, however, who have low grip strength, their verbal ability is going down with age. This is a similar example in the graph on the right. This is from a longitudinal study where older individuals were followed over a period of 7 years. And cognitive performance was measured. So things like short-term memory, spatial abilities, so ability to look at a visual display and extract spatial information. And the top two lines here show declines in cognition over 7 years, again, for people with high grip strength versus people with lower grip strength. And you can see that the slope is steeper for people with lower grip strength. So what I want to do with you now is show you how to use that bathroom scale that I told you to have on hand to measure your grip strength. Again, if you were not able to have one on hand, this is something you can always do on your own later. But I'm going to switch over now to another website. Just a second, and I will get you switched over there. So can people see the screen with the hands holding the scale? Yes, okay, good. Now this is easier to do with an analog scale, like in this example. I have found that some digital scales work well and some don't. So we'll just have to try it. And what you're going to do, you can either squeeze this scale with both hands as strong as you can, and then you can divide by 2 to get your grip strength for one hand, or the video will also show you how to do this with one hand. And I see a couple of you have run to the bathroom to grab your scale. That's great. So let me just start this video. It's a very short demonstration. So again, you can squeeze with 2 hands, okay? Or you can, it'll show you in a second, you can do it with just one hand and then turn it over to read your grip strength, okay? So go ahead and try that. I see some of you are trying it. Great work. And if you really want to do it like we do in the lab, we would ask you to do it 3 times to kind of get the average, or 3 times and take the highest reading. And this is to get your maximum grip strength. So you really want to think about, I don't know, maybe something that makes you annoyed, and then squeeze all that annoyance out into the scale. Okay, so I see a lot of you are getting your grip strength. No worries, you can share in the chat if you're feeling brave about it, but you don't have to report back. So let's go back to the slide. This is a very busy table, but the way to find what the average grip strength is for people of different ages is to start in the first column and find your age, and then move over to the right. So this column that says men and mean shows the average grip strength for either the left or the right hand in pounds. So for older individuals, it's around 60 to 75, 80, depending on whether it's your right or left hand and your age. And then women are just a couple of columns over from that. Grip strength is lower in women, so these would be average norms for women. Now, if you didn't get this level out of your bathroom scale, that's okay, don't worry about it. The really accurate way to do it is with the hand dynamometer like they have at the gymnasium, but this can give you something of an idea, or at least an estimate of what your grip strength is. And it's not necessarily that doing grip strength exercises will improve the brain, but rather we'll talk about a couple of things you can do to maintain brain health with age, and then that may also influence your grip strength. So one question I get a lot is, wow, Dr. Seidler, you're kind of depressing. You're showing us that everything goes down with age. What can we do about this? So I'm going to show you 3 key pieces of evidence that really impact and help to maintain brain health with aging. The first one you should not be surprised to hear me say is, of course, exercise, right? We all know it's good for us. We all know it's good for the heart, the lungs, the muscles, the bone, and guess what? That same cardiovascular system that you're improving with exercise also feeds the brain, okay? So exercise is very good for the brain. This graph, I love this graph. This is an illustration of basically the boost, the estimated boost that you get from being an active person in terms of several different kinds of physiological function. So here on the x-axis, we have age. On the y-axis, we have a measure of physiological function. The solid line is a sedentary person, and the dashed line is an active person. Now, again, this graph shows an estimate. It's based on lots of different measures of physiology, but the first thing you will notice is that this dashed line is higher than the solid line, no matter your age, right? So you can be active at any age and improve your physiology. The other thing that I like about it is that they show that a person who is active, who is roughly 60 years old, can have physiological measures that are similar to a sedentary 30-year-old, okay? Exercise can make a huge difference. This is another image here shown on the right. I also love this image. This is from a study in which they took sedentary people that were in their 70s and were not doing any activity, and they engaged them in a walking program. No running, no weightlifting, no high intensity stuff, just walking for 3 months. And they found all of these areas in blue showed increases in gray matter volume. All of these areas in orange showed increases in white matter volume. And when they followed up these folks and they looked at some of the trajectories of decline in brain volume that happen with age, some measures showed a less steep decline and some showed a leveling off, that they stopped declining as long as these people kept exercising. So this is my first key point. Exercise is really important, not just for maintaining muscle health, bone health, but also for brain health, brain structure, brain function. My next key point is living a purposeful life. So what do I mean by that? I mean engaging in your community, interacting with your family, interacting with your friends, doing things that bring you meaning, that are important to you, and doing things as well that reduce your stress. So let's start with this graph on the left. These blue dots show a very interesting new model where on the x-axis we have, again, people's age, and the y-axis is something called estimated brain age. So everybody in this study had a brain scan that was fed into a computer model, and the computer model estimated people's age. And you can see for these blue dots, that computer is pretty good. So if you look at this right here in the middle, someone who is 40 years age, the computer model said, yes, this brain looks like it's about 40 years old. Someone who was 60 years old, the computer model said, yes, that brain looks like it's about 60. But now let's talk about what is represented in this red line that is not as steep. Okay, so for this red line, what we're seeing is that the computer model thinks that brain is about 5 years younger than it really is. Does anyone want to guess? You can unmute yourself or throw an answer into the chat. Anyone want to guess who this red line is reflecting? Any ideas? Oh, Helen says people who volunteer. That is not a bad guess, Helen. It is Buddhist monks who meditate daily. Okay, so this speaks to having some downtime and stress relief. The computer model looks at their brain scan and says, they look like they're 5 years younger than they really are. Let's also look at this graph on the right. This relationship is not quite as strong, but still I found this one to be really interesting. So on the x-axis, we have a measure of busyness. In this study, by busyness, they meant, as Helen suggested, are you going out and volunteering? Are you taking time to go and visit your friends? Are you interacting with family? How busy are you? And sometimes we think of busyness as being bad, but actually as we age, busyness can be very good because it means engaging with other people. So this study found the more busy people are, the better their long-term memory, okay? So this is another point. So far we've got exercise and we've got living a purposeful or meaningful life. My third and final key point for maintaining brain health, also probably not a surprise, is a healthy diet. So studies have been conducted to look at what is different about the societies worldwide that have the highest life expectancy. And not only the highest life expectancy, but the highest disability-free life expectancy. So not just living longer, but living longer for quality years. And the unique thing about those societies is, one of the unique things is their diet. They eat mostly plant-based diets, and when they eat meat, it's usually fish. And so, you know, these are societies like a particular community in Japan. There's also a particular religious community in Southern California. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they do a lot of walking and they eat mostly plant-based diets and fish, okay? So these are my, I have to use my cute key brain image. These are my 3 keys for you for graceful brain aging: exercise, a healthy diet, and living a purposeful life, because that means you're out there, you're being active, you're doing things that bring meaning to your life. And all of these are good for your memory, communication within your brain, how fast your brain can respond. And so I will close with that. I wanted to leave us plenty of time for questions and discussion. You can feel free to unmute yourself and ask me a question, or you can post questions in the chat.
All right, I'll try. You know, now with COVID, a lot of us have been very isolated and we're not able to have our normal social activities and volunteering and meeting with our family. So, you know, our brains all shriveling up now.
Helen, I hope not. But I agree, life is very different right now. It has certainly contracted in terms of not only social relationships, but also things like getting out and shopping or walking with friends or playing cards with friends. And I will say, of course, Zoom is not the same thing. Zoom is not ideal, but I have done things, for example, I have a weekly phone Zoom chat with my extended family around the US once a week. We all share updates about what's going on, and then we play some online games together. And you know, it's better than nothing, right? I have a high schooler as well who is a volunteer. She volunteers at the Humane Society, and she has been able to do some stuff remotely. She reached out to them and they asked her if she could deliver things like drop off thank you notes to donors. She doesn't have to interact with them. She just drives, leaves it on the front door, you know, knocks on the door and leaves. So I would say any activity that you were participating in pre-COVID, I would really encourage you to reach out to them and just say, hey, how can we stay connected? What can we do? Can I do anything to volunteer remotely? Can I make phone calls instead of showing up in person? Same thing if you have friends that you were walking with. I have been walking with friends where we're each on opposite sides of the street. And that seems a little bit silly. Our conversation, we're shouting back and forth to each other, but we're still out walking and we're still socially interacting, right? So, so I would encourage all of you to keep doing this stuff. I was really struck when the shutdowns first started happening, how many of my neighbors that I saw out walking and bike riding that I had not seen for ages because they were all at home. And I noticed that that has tapered off. Somewhat people are going back to work, and I think somewhat people are losing motivation to still get out and do things. So hopefully maybe some of what I've conveyed to you will help you to stay engaged or to re-engage. I see I have a question in the chat. Can I talk about resources and specialties that UF has for anyone that may have questions or concerns regarding their brain health? Certainly. So she has put in there, for example, the Norman Fixell Institute. So I'm a member of that center. This is our Center for Movement Disorders at the University of Florida. And this is an amazing clinic, particularly for people with movement disorders that are impacting more and more folks as they age. So things like Parkinson's disease. They have a specialty in Parkinson's and related disorders. Also, the Institute on Aging has quite a few resources. I don't know, Heather, if you're able to maybe just grab a couple of these websites while we're talking and post them in the chat. The Institute on Aging also has many programs available, and I'm not exactly sure. I know many of these they're doing remotely, but I'm not exactly sure how much they are doing remotely, but they do a lot of community education. Also for people who like to participate in some of these studies. Some of my studies are advertised through the Institute on Aging. So we do things like bring people in, we get a brain scan, we measure their mobility and cognitive performance, and look at how that relates to brain structure and function. Geriatrics as well here also has clinical specialties for aging and dementia. UF also has a Alzheimer's disease research center. We are part of a nationwide network for Alzheimer's disease research centers, and we have just had a big grant renewed for that Alzheimer's disease center. So that will continue its funding and interacting with other centers nationwide for, I think the award is for the next 5 years. So there is a lot going on campus in terms of resources as well as clinical specialties. And even if you don't need a clinical assessment, many of these websites have resources for things like exercise programs or other opportunities. As well, I know OCAMIC is one of the sponsors today, and they also have tons of amazing programs. I think they are doing them online these days, I'm not sure. But Heather, maybe you can also put their website into the chat. They have all kinds of great lectures. They bring people from UF over to lecture. Maybe it's online now, I would guess. And they have lots of programs as well. I also see a note in the chat from Ron. Even though he's retired, he keeps up with professional technical committees, and that keeps him involved in the profession, mind thinking creatively. And this is also a fantastic suggestion for the professional societies that I'm a part of. We often tap people that are retired to consult with us because we know they have a little more time and they have a wealth of expertise. So if you do belong to professional societies related to your job, you can certainly stay involved with them after you retire. In fact, they'd probably love to hear from you. Mm-hmm. One piece of data that I did not share today that I also really love talking about is the fact that numerous studies have shown that something called crystallized intelligence goes up with age. That's one that does not decline into 70s, 80s, and 90s. It is still going up. So that measure of intelligence measures things like fact-based knowledge, vocabulary, and it happens because, again, as we age, we accrue a lifetime of facts, knowledge, and expertise. So Again, I encourage you, if there's a way for you to contribute your expertise through volunteering or consulting with societies, that's a great thing to do. I also see, an Aging Backwards book and program. I actually don't know this one. I'm going to have to check it out myself. And yes, people are setting some amazing goals during this downtime for things like reading different books, trying to be more active, improving your golf game, learning a new language. These are all the things I can't wait to do when I retire. Yeah, some people still work full time, have a great home gym. There are a lot of now online exercise options. Even your local gym probably has online classes right now. Margot Pope is asking, what plant-based foods do I recommend, or how do I know which sites are reliable? That is a little bit tough for me because nutrition is not necessarily my main area of expertise, but I would say, you know, sort of a standard, and of course you can always consult with your doctor or a dietitian. You know, these societies that I mentioned, what I will say is they are eating something that is largely a vegetarian diet. So they are getting proteins from whole grains, from tofu, from dairy sources, and then they're adding in fish as well. So sorry, I can't be more clear on that one. Yeah, miss traveling and seeing family in other states. And again, to be honest, something like Zoom or Skype, I think goes a long ways because you can see the person's face. I also have been having some outside walking meetings where we're all wearing our masks and we're outside and walking, but we're still talking. That's been a great way for me to stay in touch with some coworkers. But it's not the same, right, as traveling out. You know, I have family that live in Oregon. That's a long ways away. We can't go for a walk. I know a lot of people have been missing meeting grandchildren. It's really, I think it's tough times. So trying to stay in touch as much as possible over video. And I can tell you certainly over the years with my, you know, living far from my parents, my kids have managed to maintain good relationships with them just because they see them online and they hear their voice. And so when they see them in person, it's a lot more comfortable and kind of seamless transition. Another exercise thing, not that I, you know, please don't take this as any endorsement. I'm not endorsing any companies, but I just find some people don't know that the Peloton app is not just about a bike. They have classes in meditation, yoga, strength training, all kinds of stuff that you can do at home and you don't need any equipment. And it's very inexpensive. Yes, meditation. Other questions, comments? Feel free to unmute if you want to share a question or comment. Oh, Helen, I also do yoga with Adrian. Yes. Yes, thousands of free videos. Yep. So it sounds like I'm really preaching to the choir here. You sound like the group that is already maintaining your brain health with all of your exercise and your keeping your brain active by staying engaged. So sounds like you already knew everything, which is great. Or at least you knew what you needed to be doing, which is fantastic. I know it sounds like maybe some of you might be starting to sign off. I will just, before we close, I'm happy to stay and take more questions, but for people that are signing off, thanks for joining us. It was great to speak with you. And again, I'm quite serious when we get back to being on campus. If you come, you know, if you come for a football game or, you come to visit campus for any other reason, again, I'm in the Florida gym and we're right next door to the stadium. We're super easy to find. Feel free to pop in and see what we're up to. I would love to meet you in person.
I think we're kind of wrapping up here. Like Dr. Seidler said, she can stay and take additional questions if you have it. But I just wanted to say a big thank you to Dr. Seidler for this very informative session on key ways that each of us can impact our own brain health. We want to thank each of you for your time today and hope you enjoyed, whether you're joining for the first time or whether you've joined us for our past 2 sessions. We hope that you're able to spread the word to your fellow classmates about the time that you had today and help route them to our Class of 1970 website. We recently added some college activities to our website, so feel free to go on and peruse those at your leisure. Know that we're going to be adding things probably daily at this point in time. So feel free to join us for any and all activities, and make sure you register for the Breakfast of Memories before October 28th, and you can actually get a special commemorative Grand Guard package in the mail. So thank you again, Dr. Seidler, for your time today. Thank you to our alumni for joining us.
My pleasure.
And make sure everybody takes care and go Gators.